My friend, I'll make it clear. I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I lived after this full. I've traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I had to do. I saw it through without exemption. What's up, Martin?
Keep going, man.
Oh, man. I kind of butchered that one a little bit, but, you don't get them all right.
You were hitting your stride there, man. I was just soaking it all in.
That song. Who does? There's another version of that song, or maybe that was a live version. So I was a little off on my beat a little bit. But man, welcome to the Greatness Machine.
I thought it was terrific. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Guys, welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and boy, do we have a special guest, my friend, Martin Grunburg, here on the show. Martin, welcome to the show, man. I'm so glad to have you here.
The real D, I can't believe it's you in person. Sweet.
In the digital flesh.
It's good enough for me, man. It is an honor and a privilege to be here, my friend.
Well, we're going to have some fun. I'm going to give a little bit of background. So, guys, my friend Tony Lilios, a good buddy of mine from GOT, said, man, you got to connect with my buddy Martin. And is it Grunberg? Did I get your last name correct?
Yeah, you nailed it.
He's like, you got to have him on your show. He's a great person. He's doing some amazing work. And he made the reference. And I was like, yeah. I said, any friend of Tony is a friend of mine. So glad to have you here. For those of you guys that are new to the show, this is the Greatness Machine. And we're about two things. We're about people who are living their passions and those that are creating greatness in the world. And my friend Martin is neither short of passion or greatness. So we're going to be chopping that up in just a moment. Martin, do you mind if I give a little bit of background about yourself?
I do not mind, but I wanted to throw the shout out to Tony. He is a remarkable man. And quickly, I met him. I don't know if he shared this, but I met him when we were doing what's known as the Rim to Rim to Rim challenge.
Oh,
so anyways, that's how I was introduced to the legend that is Tony. Tony,
did you do that with Jack Daly a couple years ago?
Yeah, correct.
Wow. Okay, cool. So I had about 3 or 4 friends on that. So one of my buddies, Marco Gargenta, was in that group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin Dom was in that group, and then James Ashcroft was in that group, and Jack Daly, of course. So I heard all about that trip. That's an amazing trip. I'd love for us to chat about that. Before we go there, though, I do want to give some background on yourself. Guys, Martin Grunberg is regarded worldwide as the foremost authority and thought leader in the arena of habit development for the purpose of goal attainment. And Martin is widely recognized as the father of modern habit tracking movement. So you're the inventor and creator of the Habit Factor app, which was the first habits to goal tracking app. And that was introduced to iTunes back in 2009, as well as the first to publish a simplified, practical, and revolutionary new method for goal achievement in your book, The Habit Factor. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks again. Again, it is an honor and a privilege, and I appreciate the background. So
I have a question for you. So how the hell do you get into the habit business? I mean, how did you get into the habit business? I mean, there's a lot of businesses out there, but that's its own business.
So it was hardly a business in 2005 when I started out conceiving of the Habit Factor and knowing that I was going to write this book. It was really, Darius, at the time, it was a philosophical pursuit. And the whole thing was precipitated by, I don't want to over dramatize it, but a fairly dark place in my life. So at the age of 35, I was semi depressed, really felt like I was leaving some stuff on the table. in terms of my life and ambition. And next thing I knew, I was going through a Tony Robbins exercise. You may have heard of this, called the rocking chair. Uh,
No. Educate us on it.
yeah. The idea is you're 85 years old and you're looking back on a great lifetime and you're recounting. And keep in mind, I was 35 and I was mildly depressed and not too thrilled about the way things were going in my life. But the idea of the exercise is to picture you're 85, you're sitting on the rocking chair on your porch, the grandkids are running around, and you're reflecting on a great life of achievement and experiences. And I thought that sounds like a very good imagination exercise to go through. And then before I kind of knew it, Darius, I took it to another level, and it turned into this bucket list experience. I convinced myself that I was going to die tomorrow. And knowing I was going to die, there was this incredible sense of urgency. And I was like, what have I not done with my life? What am I trying to achieve? So I created this list, and at the top of the list, somewhat similar to the Rim to Rim, was this thing called the Catalina Classic. You lay on a board and you paddle 32 miles from Catalina Island to Manhattan Beach. And you could probably relate to this. It was one of those someday goals, right? So I started thinking about it, heard about it at 17, fast forward 18-ish years, I'm 35, and the someday never came. I never did it. So I convinced myself, look, it's now or never. You sign up or you don't sign up, and you have to forget about it. So this is to answer your habit question. Because I signed up for the event, because I went through this challenge, this personal challenge, I gave myself 6 months, and then I panicked. I figured, how am I going to do this? I had to buy a paddleboard. I never raced in one event or 1 mile, let alone 32 miles. What came out of that experience was essentially, not to oversimplify it, but a habit tracking sheet that I still give away. Now at the time, it wasn't hardly public. It was just something I did. So I achieved this goal to my utter surprise, like shock. I didn't own a paddleboard, and 6 months later, I did it. I then wanted to test it. I'm like, if this really just happened, I need to try another bucket list type goal. So it was an Ironman, and I used the same process. And I'll try to accelerate the story, but the short story is, I'm sure you're familiar with EO. I was in an entrepreneur organization group. My peers were like, what are you doing? Can you share this with us? And that was the birth of the app. And then that helped me to finish and write the book, because it went from me to a group of 10 to now, 500,000 plus downloads. And that's where we are, buddy. That's the inception story.
That's pretty cool. So it was really this, like, I mean, it's kind of a morbid way of thinking about it. Funny enough, I've been kind of having some of those thoughts lately, which is, if I, how do I want to spend my time? And I'm in an interesting spot. I'm at EO. I'm not in EO anymore, but I was in EO for about 14 years. And so that's how I went through a program at the EO MIT program, Birthing of Giants. I did that program, which is how, and then I'm in the alumni program now with Tony. Yeah, I was thinking about it. Like, how do I, for me, habit creates, I guess the way I think about it is habit creates tradition, right? And so whether it's or behavior that happens regularly. And then once that happens, results come out of that. And for you to obviously create this goal, right? So the goal, and it sounds to me like there was a reverse engineering process.
That's exactly what it was.
Hey, I want to go do this thing that's hard to do that I don't think I can do. How do I do it? Well, I got to go set the goal, and then, well, where am I at today and how do I get there?
That's exactly how it's explained in the book, and you nailed it. What I struggled with, which I didn't get into, was I, as an entrepreneur, I had followed all the best practices, SMART goals. You know what SMART goals is, right?
Yeah, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely.
And actually, if you Wikipedia it, there's like 5 words for each letter in the acronym. But having said that, what happens, Darius, when you go through the SMART goals process? Like, in the simplest of terms, what do you end up with?
Well, you end up with something that you should be able to do and a process to get there.
You end up with a to-do list. You end up
Right.
with a to-do list. And what confused the hell out of me, pardon my French, is I don't know if that's 1,000 steps, 20 steps. The whole next step thing was where I always got derailed. And with the habit factor, and again, this is with hindsight and understanding why it's been so successful helping people. The habit factor says, let's pay less attention to the to-do list and focus more on the core recurring behaviors, the habits that will help you achieve the goal. So if the goal is writing a book, what's more important, calling a publisher or writing for 20 minutes Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Right?
Yeah, writing 250 words a day is how I was taught to write a
Focus
book.
on the habit, the consistency, and then of course calling a publisher is going to be important, or calling 50 of them. But and if you want to run a marathon, it's not going to be about calling a trainer, signing up, the to-do list. It is less about the to-do list. It is more about the core recurring behaviors. So you nailed it when you said it's a reverse engineering process. Yeah, I went all the way to the end, as in Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. I died, and then I said, holy shit, what did I most regret not achieving? Right? So I stepped back, and then I said, okay, what do I have to do? I signed up for the event, and then I was in a panic. What do I got to do? And that's when accidentally I started tracking these habits. And that was the key breakthrough for me. And then I did it with an Ironman, and then I did it with a book. And then again, the app came out and the book came out, and it's kind of spread like that. Now there's almost no, dare I say, more popular topic than habit. There's hundreds of books, but when the habit factor, just I'm not saying I'm responsible. I'm just laying out the timeline. There was only one book, and it was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, Steve Covey, right?
And then almost 20 years go by or something, and then the habit factor comes out, and it was the first app. And it was the first app that said, hey, this is what you do. You track your habits and you attach them to your goals. Anyways, since then, hundreds of habit tracking apps, hundreds of habit tracking books, and that's where we are today. And really my main was habit had a predominantly negative connotation at the time. It's not so bad now. In other words, smoking, drinking, biting nails, and think about your kid. Do you have kids?
I do. I have 2 children.
So at the time, my kids were really young, and I thought it was a crime, a literal crime, that if you ask a kid, first thought, good or bad, when I say habit, like a word association, I say habit, you say, and they say bad. And I'm like, how are you going to bridge? How are you going to connect the dots? You talk about you right here. You're talking about living your passion. You're talking about creating your ideal future. How are you going to do that when you think habit is bad and it's actually totally neutral? Habit could give a rat's ass. It's like the force. It's good and it's bad. It's both. It's how you channel it, how you harness it. So I'm unloading on you, but that's really the inception story, and that's where that was the mission, the driving mission behind why I wrote the book.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'll tell you, for me, I've broken some bad habits and picked up good ones and done all that good stuff. the conclusion I came to, which was similar to where you ended up, which is like, you got to figure out where you want to go. And then you got to create a mechanism to do something consistently. Right. And so for me, it was, I did this where I struggled with it the most was in my business. This is actually where I learned my habit process. And I'm not that great at habits because I'm not really good at getting into the minutia. I'm bad at that. So even the idea of going into an app on a daily basis is a struggle for me. But because I'm so bad at that, for me, I started figuring out that, okay, well, and I'll give you a perfect example. So I have a person every day I get on the phone with them. I try to get on the phone with them every day. And we ask each other 40, well, now it's like 40 plus questions each. And they're yes, no questions. And I pick the habits that I want to be held accountable to in those questions. And so an example of that would be, I'll say, did I meditate for 20 minutes yesterday? Okay, because it's a habit I want to do. And if I say no consistently, at the point I made a rule with myself, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. At the point where I'm disgusted with myself, I have to take that goal and bring it down to the lowest increment of behavior and say, okay, did I meditate for 20 minutes once last week, not every day? Or did I meditate for even 10 minutes? I'll make the goal much lower, right? And then I got to show up every day and say yes or no. And I do that with it. And what I found was when I do that, I start hitting my goals. And then once it becomes the norm, then I start bumping it up. And for me, that's how I've created a lot of, where I stole that from, I created that process because in my business, we'd set all these goals and nothing would happen. Or we would do like half of it and we never got to the end. We never finished the goals, right? It was like this, I called it kick in the can. We kept kicking the can quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. And finally I said, fuck this. I said, you're not allowed to have those 10 goals. You're allowed to have one goal. And they're like, well, we're going to get that done in a week. I said, great. When you get that done, we'll set the second goal. Right. And so I found that was the one. And I built my company to about 1,000 employees. Right. So you can't build a company that size unless you have a bunch of infrastructure built. You can't build the infrastructure where you're doing 10 of them at once. And so for me, that's been the trick for me, which is when I don't hit them, I go, okay, that's not my goal anymore. My goal now is not to take my kid to school every day. My goal is to take my kid to school one day this week.
Yeah.
And what I found is once I do that, and then I have to show up week in and week out and say, I did it. Then I notice then it becomes like after a month or two or three, it's like, oh, well, that's just what I do now. And then I add to it. What are your thoughts about that process?
So a few things here. You said it's an accountability partner. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So Marshall Goldsmith.
Yep.
Yeah, so he spoke to our group and he did this thing where you ask you get an accountability partner, you ask them 6 questions every day. Right. So the questions are like, did I do my best to, live up, I could go, I'll find the questions. I'll read them to you.
I just want to, so I'm trying to overlay your process to kind of the habit factor follows something very important. It's now known as the habit factor method. It's called PAR, which stands for plan, act, record.
Sorry, you cut out. You cut out. Say that again. You cut out. So plan, act, and then what?
Record, and reassess. So because you have experience with this is going to be fairly easy to follow, I believe. Now, we can wait on an accountability partner, or we could set up an elaborate system like that. My feeling was, this is my accountability partner.
Yeah, a piece of paper.
And yes. And so what would happen is I just broke down. So you called them goals, right? But really in the nomenclature of the habit factor, it's important to distinguish goals from habits and targets. So we would call these targets, and we would use the rhythm. We use the rhythm of the week. So for instance, if my goal, important to distinguish, is to lose 15 pounds, we put that, I didn't know I was going to do it, but we'd put that up here in the goal box. Then we would, across the top, you identify what are the behaviors, the habits, if you develop them, will help you achieve the goal. So one might be eat a salad. Now, what happens in the column, I know it's too hard to read, but
No, that's
just
okay.
follow the, what happens is we use just ones and zeros. So it's binary. And you have a target and an actual. So you were talking about driving your kid to school. I'm talking about losing weight. But let's jump back to the kid. Your target is, well, Mondays are crazy. So that's a 0 as far as target. Tuesday, yes, I want to drive him to school. Wednesday, yes, I want to drive him to school. Thursday, yes. Friday, no, that's the day I golf with the buddies. Saturday, 0. Sunday, 0. So your targets are set up, right? 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0. And then you go into your actual, this thing's taped to your desk, and you see, yeah, I don't have to call anybody. I just, my kid, there's my kid. Did I drive him? Yes or no? 1 or a 0. 1 or a 0. And it's even, what makes it really sweet is you see your targets staring you in the face. So a salad, and then you're using the rhythm of the week. So then you get to the weekly subtotal. And by the way, this is what precipitated the app. So but the point is, at the end of the week, you're like, all right, my target was drive the kid to school 4 days, but I only drove him 3. Not bad, tracking 75%. That's pretty solid. So that's the process. And you use the rhythm of the week, and you just identify, when you're starting out, really no more than 5 habits. So that's it.
So let me ask you a question, because you said 2 things that I thought were pretty insightful. Number one, I love the idea of the piece of paper as your partner. But one of my questions is how important is that the act of actually, and I call this learning through osmosis. If I have that thing taped to my desk, exactly. it's sitting there just like looking, like staring at me all day. And I look at, by the way, that's why I do the thing where I get asked every morning, because I'm like, God, I know I'm going to show up and get asked this stupid question, and I have to say the word yes, no. But similar. It's a different way of doing it. Obviously, there's a more elaborate, because I have to have some other human being. But I love the idea, like, is that aspect of it where it's like it's taped to my desk and it's sitting there 1 foot away from me, and I got to look at it. And when I haven't done it, I keep looking at it. It's there for 8 hours, 9 hours. Before I know, I'm like, I'm not putting a 0 on that thing.
That's right. I have stories that, first of all, you are brilliant, because I say this on the podcast. I talk about, because we're constantly updating the app, I say over and over that I prefer, this spreadsheet has changed very little in like 15 years. It's just very functional. But the point is, I say over and over on the podcast, just tape it to your desk. Put it right next to your mouse. You cannot, and if you just have 5 habits, so for me, it's better than the app, just because we're always updating it, and then I got to back up and restore. But it just stares you in the face, and you absolutely nailed it. Yeah,
I love that. So it's funny. So I wrote a book called The Core Value Equation, which is around how do you create a core value driven organization.
I started reading it. I thought it was great.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's great.
So I appreciate that very much. One of the things that I do, which is really similar to what you do, is when I build core values for a business, I say, look, there's only really 3 things you have to do if you want core values to come to life. And they're all habitual, by the way. Well, they are habitual in their own way. One is really habitual, but one is you got to roll them out to your team in a proper way that makes them understand them. And so I have a whole process around that. And the habit is that the first day at work, that's what they do. The second one is, and this one, it kind of foots to the taping into your desk, is you got to put them up all over the office. Just put them up, tape them up, like put them everywhere. Make them big, make them readable, and put them everywhere so that people
on our walls and on our business cards.
Yeah, just put them up so they can't help but see them all the time. In COVID world, that's a little bit more difficult because people are working remote. But put them on your website, put them on your walls. And what I said is, they're learning through osmosis. They're walking by that sign all the time, and they see it and see it and see it. And after a while, they can't help but not know it. And once they know it, there's a much higher likeliness of them using it. The last one, which is it's a real habit one, which is we ask the question of our team every other week: who live the core values in the company? Name someone, what core value do they live, and how they live it. And then we publish that. And these are habits we created. And what I told people, I said, because I sat there and struggled with how do you make core values come to life in a company for years and years, because there was no book on this, by the way. Like I think my book's still the only book. And what I found was you got to make it simple, stupid, or else people won't do it. So my question for you is that a big part of habit for you, is making it so simple that they can't help but do it? Like, what are your thoughts around simplicity and habit creation?
Absolutely. It is the essence of beginning. So one of the pro tips, people get caught up in, oh my God, I got to do my 50 squats, and they're like, 50 squats, that's going to take forever. I don't have enough time. The pro tip, the best thing from my experience you can do is you set that minimum success criteria to, say, 15. So it's a no-brainer. So that 1 or 0, right? Did I do my 15 squats? And you're setting the bar so low. You track for 28 days, and then you raise the bar, because now you have some real momentum, and now you're up to 35 squats, and then you're up to 50 squats. So you're increasing what's known as habit strength. The other area of simplicity that's really important is not just where the bar is. In other words, not 50 push-ups, but 10 or 5. But the other is that frequency per week. You were talking about trying to take your kid every day. If you haven't taken your kid any days, every day is a huge leap.
Yeah. How about one? How about one day then?
Right. 1 or 2. Absolutely. So the idea of beginning is to set that bar low in 2 core areas: the frequency per week, because you do not need to. It's a common misunderstanding that you have to do something every day to develop a habit.
Yeah.
So 2 days a week is 1 day a week, as long as you get consistency over time. So consistency over time, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, and set the bar low. 15 minutes of reading versus an hour. Somebody's like, oh, it says I got to do an hour of reading. I don't have an hour. 15 minutes, and next thing you know, you'll actually probably read for an hour.
Yeah, what's funny is I go to the far. I almost penalize myself. I go, hey, listen, I keep saying, oh, I want to read half an hour a day, right? And I go, I haven't done it. So now the new goal is 5 minutes a week. It's something. I mean, it's something.
Wait, a week?
Yeah. I picked something ridiculous.
No.
Right?
Okay. Well, get this sheet and make it 3 times. Pick 3 target days, 5 minutes. But you're spot on. What'll happen is you'll pick up the book, and 5 minutes will turn into 15 or 20. So you're absolutely right.
I love it, man, and I like the idea of this education around it. Doesn't 21 days in a row forms a habit, and it's like, how about just 3 weeks, two times a week for 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Do that, and I'll tell you what, for me, that's been a game changer. And now we didn't talk about what I do. Now I exited my company. Now I coach a bunch of other companies, and I work with, these are average companies, probably 70 million bucks in revenue. These are good sized businesses. And I walk in there and they have all these goals. And I'm like, yeah. How many of those goals did you guys knock out? How many? And the reality is, to your point, they have 0 habits around completing these goals. They have no system around habit forming. They just set these sexy, cool goals so they can write them on a piece of paper and feel good. And then quarter after quarter, they don't accomplish them. And I said, grab those and throw them in the garbage can. You're not allowed to set a goal you're not going to hit. And what are your habits around that? What is your cadence around it? So I want to talk a little bit about, how do you build that like muscle around cadence? You called it habit strength.
Yes.
Can you dive deeper into that? Because I think that's a really important.
Yeah. So in the plan, you have your targets, and when you decide on a target, so reading. Let's just use reading. I want to increase my reading habit strength. Well, you got to identify the frequency per week, the cadence. So starting small, because I do not have the reading habit, I'm just going to pick 2 days a week that I think I have my best shot. And then I'm going to identify kind of when. Is it going to be the morning or night when I'm going to bed? And then I'm going to say, okay, Tuesday, Thursday, 5 minutes. And once you have that target, then you have to act, then you record. And by the way, I highly recommend, as part of the accountability to the sheet and to your accountability partner, you add comments. So the comments were like, you know, my wife got pissed off. I was reading and I still managed to read. Woohoo! The idea of adding comments is what happens is you're reaffirming your commitment, right? Your intention. So what happens is it's not just the frequency per week, it's the 28 days that you track. 28 days is just 4 weeks. Everything involves, as you said, cadence, right? Frequency. We live in a world of pattern and rhythm. The sun rises and sets, the tide comes in, the tide goes out. So you track for 28 days. And at the end, if you're 85% or better, and by the way, we've done this with companies, exact same process. So 85% or better for the habit, you elevate, you go into the next 28 days, Darius, and you elevate those two things. The frequency per, you don't have to, but you can, the frequency per week. So now it's going to be 3 days. And instead of 5 minutes, it's going to be 15 minutes. You do it for another 28 days. And now guess what? You're getting stronger because you're reading and you're 85%. Then you elevate. Now it's still 3 days, but it's 25 minutes. And then you just keep inching up the bar. It's almost like a high jump, right? You clear 7 feet, then they inch it up to 7.2. You clear that, they inch it up to 7.4. That's how you develop habit strength. It's just like a muscle. So it's not about 1 month. It's not about 66 days. It's not about 14 days. You just keep reiterating the process. Now, some people who aren't process minded like you go, oh, this is ridiculous. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have 4 months to do this. My point is, what, are you going to die? Like, of course you have that time. And the sooner you begin, the sooner you will begin to develop the habit.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you said you guys go and work with companies. What type of work do you guys do when you go work with companies?
So there's in particular a manufacturing company, and they wanted to refine their safety behavior habits. So they're factory workers, and so the foreman, the manager, general manager, implemented. He first used it to lose weight, and then he implemented it across his floor to improve safety behavior habits.
So for you guys, it's the same process regardless if you're trying to change a habit in the workplace versus an individual trying to improve their life through these healthy habits. You guys use the same process regardless?
And the mechanism's the same. Absolutely. It's plan, act, record, reassess. You have the variables, you have a tracking period, you have a frequency per week, and you have minimum success criteria. Those are the variables. That's the mechanism. That's the process. And then the habit carries you, moves you to the goal. Those variables, those 3 variables.
What's the difference between a target and a goal?
So a target is, I want to drive my kid 3 days per week. That's not a goal. The goal is to be closer to my kid. The goal is right?
Got it. So
to have a better relationship. So my kid looks back and says, Daddy was always there. That's the goal. The target is 3 days per week.
Got it. So the target's part of the process. The goal is the vision of creation.
The actual overall goal.
Right. So my goal would be, okay, I'm going to lose 15 pounds. The target would be, I need to break a sweat 4 times this week. I need to not drink during the weekdays at all. I need to eat a salad 3 times this week.
And you identify the minimum success criteria. So is it the minimum success criteria is like, is it 6 glasses of water or 8, right? That's really important because you're using binary. It's zeros and ones. Your target days, what days are you going to eat the salad? Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. And then what days are you not going to drink? That's a great one. 4 days a week, no alcohol.
Yeah, I'm gonna go break my goal on that for the week, because after this I'm gonna go have a beer. But my goal is to not drink Monday through Friday, and I'm happily breaking that today. I should have said except Thursday and Friday this week.
Right. Well, and this is, dare I say, the beauty of this process, because it's staring you in your face, because it's osmosis. You miss your target day. The beauty is Friday comes along. And even though you're allowed to drink on Friday, you're like, you know what? I'm not going to be hanging out with the boys. I'm going to catch up and not drink on Friday. So it's staring at you.
Let me ask you a question, because I have a sister, and so one of my goals was to do a family meeting every Sunday, and so now I do a family meeting every Sunday. We go over our family core values, we set our goals for the week, and if they don't hit the goals, I leave them on the board, and then next week they got to try to hit the goals. So it's kind of a similar type of process, and I'm teaching my kid how to build habits. One of the cool things that's come out of this is my kids are getting much better at doing their chores. They're getting way better at they make their bed. Hell, I had not. You're gonna love this, Martin. I don't think I made my bed my whole life until I started making my kids make the bed, and I was like, I can't be a hypocrite and not make my bed and tell them to make their bed. So I kid you not, I started doing this like 2 years ago, or not even. That's an exaggeration. Since COVID, I started doing it. I make my bed every day now. I don't even think about it. I get up, I make the bed. And the reason for it was I was like, I really want my kids to learn the habit of making their bed. And I was making them do it, and I felt like a hypocrite and wasn't doing it myself. So one of my questions for you, which is, I was telling my sister about this, and I could sense her anxiety elevate. She's like, that sounds so much, right? She got like upset about it. Like that sounds so what's the word I'm looking for? Like structural.
It's micromanaging your life on a certain level. And I was certainly like, if I were talking to me at 20, I would have looked at this and said, this is ridiculous. This is super lame. Then what happens again is 20 years of your life go by. By the way, almost everybody that gravitates to the habit factor is 45, almost. I don't want to like blanket, but they're 45 years and older, and then they're like, holy shit, I got to get my habits in order. And so it's semi-tragic that so much time has to go by before we make that realization. But to your sister's point, yeah, look, I said this on the podcast. Which habits should you track? Because we can form habits without tracking. And how long should you track? The joke answer, the real answer is, how long do you plan to be alive? Like, if something matters to you, track it.
So some people, though, can probably take this too far, don't you think?
Well, they do, and I think the process ends up imploding on itself. Like we recommend, don't track more than 5 habits, and then we get support tickets coming in. We're like, how many habits are you tracking? And I'm like, I cannot imagine that. It's dangerous. Like, I think it's dangerous.
How many you cut out? How many habits are they tracking?
35.
So could you give an example of 35 habits? Would be like work out 5 times a week, take the dog on 10 walks. It's all this like meditate 20 minutes a day, read 10 minutes.
Look, everybody comes at this with their own bag of goods. So some people are tracking very personal things. So we don't dig into what these 35 habits are. It could be take my medication. It could be call grandma. It could be, but it can be also, weird stuff. So yeah.
Okay. So it could be anything and everything. So what 5 for you is a good number, because it's
5 is a great number, especially when you're starting out. It usually takes about 5 to achieve whatever goal you're trending towards. So, for instance, going way back to the Catalina Classic, I knew paddling was the core habit, but then I was like, I got to run. It's 32 miles. I got to condition. So I started tracking my running. I started tracking how much water I was drinking, and that's the idea, you know, track the things that relate to your energy, your well-being, because that's going to drive everything else and influence everything else.
So we're heading towards the end of the show here, but I just want to ask one final question from you. So, you know, how has this changed your life since you've, you know, I mean, obviously you became the habit guy, and you be, you know, the father of modern habit tracking, as
Well,
as I've been told. But how has this changed your life for the better?
so just to comment on that comment. So if you in modern, that's semi-modern history, but if you go back to Benjamin Franklin, he was, and I'm sure, actually semi-sure, that there's some evidence that the Greeks were doing this, but Benjamin Franklin, um, you know, he was tracking his virtues, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that. So how do you develop a virtue?
What? Yeah, help me out here. I don't. What is the difference between a habit and a virtue?
Thank you. The way you develop a virtue is via habit. So, in other words, if you have the virtue of honesty, it's because you are habitually honest. So, all I wanted to say was, uh, can forget about everything I said here. If you're like, this guy's a total kook, meaning me, and just go read about Benjamin Franklin and his habit tracking. Now, he calls it tracking his virtues, and he cites it in his autobiography. But the key point there is, we know how well Benjamin Franklin ended up doing. And in his autobiography, at 80 plus years old, he says, if there's only one thing I could give my descendants, only one thing out of my whole life, out of being like the first postmaster and printer and founding father, it was tracking my habits. That was the most important thing he wanted to share to whoever was reading his autobiography.
I love it. I
How
love
has it changed my life? It's it's a bit of a roundabout answer. It's the joy of, I did something that was selfish. I set a goal for me. It scared the hell out of me. I had no idea how I was going to achieve it. Um, I was terrified. I ended up achieving it. I tested it again, but the way it's changed my life is, I am compelled to continue to share the message, the lessons that I've learned from the habit factor. That's how it's changed me. Getting emails from people. That's just incredible. And comments and notes and reviews and all that stuff.
So cool. Well, Martin, we're coming towards the end of the show here. Where can people find you and connect with you if they want to learn more about the work you're doing, and as well as the habit factor?
It's really hard to find. Thehabitfactor.com.
That seems like a really difficult find, if you ask me. Guys, very cool. Martin, what so much gratitude. Such a pleasure having you on the show. By the way, where are you based out of?
San Diego.
Oh, cool. Okay, you're a SoCal guy. So, guys, what a great treat having Martin here teaching us all about habit forming, and we love the habit factor. This is such a cool idea, and I'm so grateful Tony made the introduction. Guys, we're gonna put this in the show notes, but check out, if you want to change your life, change your habits, check out thehabitfactor.com, as well as the book and the app. Support Martin, and you'll be supporting yourself. With that said, Martin, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you so much, my friend. It's been a great conversation, and great to meet you.
Hey, likewise, Darius. It was, again, an honor. It was fun and educational on my behalf as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. We'll see you guys soon. Peace out. We're out of here.